Hello, everyone. So last week was Get to Know Moti Week, right? And you sent some of your questions for us to answer. And that's what I'm going to do right now because we didn't get to answer all of them during our studio chat. So I'm going to answer those questions that we didn't get to answer during our studio chat. So here goes. Our first question is from Shoti. And Shoti asks, what made you decide to give your life completely on the altar and do the work of God? Nice question, Shoti. I like that. To be honest, it wasn't my decision. I believe that I was called to do this work. It wasn't a decision that I made, but it was God who decided that He wanted me to be a part of His team, and that's exactly what happened. He presented this request to me, and I said yes. I remember how it happened. We were at an event that we had back home at the biggest stadium that we have, which was FNB, our first event at FNB Stadium, and I was looking at the crowd that was there. Many people who were in suffering, who had come asking for help from God, and we had very few pastors and pastors' wives at the time. The church in South Africa was beginning. And I remember looking at the stadium and God saying, you know what, I need you. I choose you. I'm calling you to do my work, to save these people, to undo the work of the devil in these people's lives. And that's exactly what I did. I said yes to the call. And from then on, I surrendered everything, my dreams, my hope, my future. I literally put my future on the altar of God that day. It was like my dreams died and I started living the dreams of God from that moment onwards. So it was God who called me and I said yes. All right. And Diana asks, relating to the altar. Wow, we're getting questions about the altar. I like that. What was your fears about going to the altar in relation to anything such as insecurities or family, etc.? When I decided to do the work of God, one of the hardest things or the fears that I had was telling my mom about that because African parents place a lot of value on children growing up and taking care of them. So my mom was no different. You know, she would comment before about, oh, when I'm older, you will take care of me, and I was looking forward to that up until that day that God called me, and that became a fear. How was she going to react? How was she going to view my decision? Was she going to be hurt by it, offended, feel rejected? And so I started praying about it for God to really, really prepare her for that decision and also to provide for her in my absence. And that's exactly what happened. When I broke the news that when I started dating my husband, and I broke the news that I'm dating my husband, and it's with the intention of doing the work of God together with him. She was a little bit apprehensive, as in, you're too young. Are you sure about this decision that you're making? But she took it on board. She supported me. She went full force to help me, and God has provided for her in my absence much better than I would have been able to provide for her. All right? And now Hanifa Tejan, I hope I pronounced your name right. Excuse me if I'm pronouncing it wrong. I'm sorry. Hanifa asks, how was your journey like growing in your faith? And what was your greatest struggle you overcame? My greatest struggle I haven't overcome. I believe I will only overcome this struggle the day that I die, which is my flesh, the will of my flesh. From the moment that I started in my faith, I began a war against my flesh to do the will of God. So my flesh always wants what is opposite to the will of God, and that's a struggle sometimes. And obviously, when we get baptized with the Holy Spirit, the struggle becomes a lot more bearable. We get more strength, more wisdom to fight against our flesh, but it is an ongoing struggle until the day we die. So this is my greatest struggle. This is what I constantly fight against, to make sure that I do not do the will of my flesh, my will, but I do the will of my Father. Okay? And Lily from the US, hi Lily. Lily asks, hi Moti, please share with us how you balance your life on the altar as a wife and homemaker your responsibilities and walk with God, friendships, etc.? Great question, Lily. I found that with me, everything lies on one foundation, which is my intimate relationship with God. When I'm connected with God and I'm in tune with God and our relationship is intimate and good, everything else balances out because He guides me. He shows me what to do. He gives me strength. He gives me motivation to do what I need to do. And He helps me cut a lot of corners. By that I mean He shows me how to save time and how to be wise. So everything lies on this intimate relationship with God. When I start to be too busy and I neglect this relationship, everything blows up in my face, and I start getting, I start going crazy because I'm not able to handle my responsibilities. So my secret is my relationship, my intimate relationship with God. When I place Him first and I seek Him, like His word says, everything else follows. And Lily has another question. She asks, how was it in terms of blending your cultures? Has it been easy, seamless, or at times challenging? Now it's no longer challenging, but it was challenging in the beginning, especially because we couldn't understand that some of the differences we had were actually because of our culture. I used to think, oh, that's weird, he does this, and used to think that it's something unique to him or particular to him. But when I met Portuguese people and I started understanding Portuguese culture, that's when I understood that some of the things that my husband would do that would shock me or annoy me, they were really related to his culture. And once I understood that, it was easy to adapt because I learned to understand his culture, and he did the same with mine. He learned to understand mine, and we blended up. And actually now it's actually funny because we've kind of morphed into our own culture, not Portuguese, not African. Yeah, we've just created our own culture together in this time that we've been together. Thank you for your questions, Lily. And then we have Luvio. Luvio asks, what do you find the most rewarding about what you do? Oh, Luvio, that's such a brilliant question. What I found the most rewarding actually is the fact that God counted on me to do this work. We could have, he could have chosen anyone, right? So many people in this world, but He chose me. And that's, for me, is very rewarding. No words can explain how special that is. And not only that, but when I see His work in other people through me, when He uses me to bless other people, and I actually see how people transform and change, that there's nothing more rewarding than being God's instrument. And of course, I am part of a great family. I'm surrounded by people who have beautiful characters. They are honest. They are giving. They're selfless. So I'm surrounded by a great family because of that. And we're all united in one goal, in one spirit. That's a beautiful thing. Amelia asks, what was the biggest challenge you've ever faced, and how did that experience help you? Oh my goodness. That's a different studio chat on its own. I can't go into details because then this video will be long. But the biggest challenge I ever faced was going to prison in Namibia. Wow, yeah. It wasn't a criminal. Offense that I had committed. It was just immigration issues, and I was held for 5 days because of a misunderstanding that happened because of our visas. And while that misunderstanding was being sorted, I had to spend time in prison and actually join the general population. So I wasn't, segregated or kept aside. And that was really, really hard, very intimidating, witnessing prison life, witnessing how people lived in prison, deplorable conditions, and just being there was really, really hard. Not because of me, but because of I felt helpless. I couldn't. There was very little I could do to help them when they were suffering so much. And of course, I shared by faith the work of God and the Word of God, and many of them were touched and helped when I was there. It was kind of like a light of God shining really in their lives. And when I left, they all cried because it kind of felt for them like hope was leaving. But later on, some of them came to our help center in Namibia, in Oshakati, and they became, part of our work there. So it was really, really rewarding. That experience helped me to try to see that, to really trust that God was on my side, that there was nothing I could go through where He would abandon me. It just made me see how unique He is, and how protected I am. It made me really understand His protection. It was the first time that I really got to experience it to that level. Villani Walcott, I hope I'm pronouncing your name right. Again, forgive me if I'm not. Villani or Villain asks, when you decided you want to do the work of God, which steps did you take in order to prepare yourself? I don't really remember taking specific steps to prepare myself, but I do remember that from the minute that God said, I want you to do the work of God, and I decided to lay down my dreams, every single decision that I took from then on, so everything that I thought about, everything that every decision that I made in terms of who I dated, in terms of what I did with my life, was based on the altar. So the decisions that I made led me closer and closer to the altar. I literally stopped living for myself, and I gave myself full on within the responsibilities that I had as an assistant. So even though I wasn't full time on the altar, but then I started living as someone who was, because my life, my heart was no longer in anything of this world. It was already on the altar. It already belonged to God. All right? And Jesse asks, Moti, I would like to know if there's an experience that stood out for you when you first started the work of God. For example, a funny thing that happened or a transformation you helped someone through. I wouldn't class it as funny. It actually wasn't. But when I started the work of God, I remember coming in and, I was really, really intimidated, because at that time we didn't have groups like Godly Word. We didn't have, a lot of preparation for someone coming in to do the work of God. So for me, I felt overwhelmed, because I felt like a little kitten in the middle of lions. So many experienced women, kind of like they were running and I was still crawling in my faith. And so having to fit in and having to be humble to learn, and put aside my insecurities, and really, really be humble to learn, instead of feel proud and try to affirm myself. That was the experience that I faced when I came into the work of God. But I have to be honest, God put by my side people who were really willing to teach. So as inexperienced as I was, I had a lot of patient teachers who really helped me develop in my faith a lot quicker. That was my experience in the beginning. And Anne asks, hi Moti, how was it for you marrying someone of a completely different culture to you and having to adjust? So I believe I answered that question when I answered Lily's question, right? And that was it. We're done. Oh, it was so great having this opportunity to answer your question and hear from you. And now it's Claudia and Sylvia's turn. So leave your questions for them, and they will be answering your questions as well in our studio, and even after that, if we don't get to answer all of them in studio. All right? Thank you very much, everybody. Goodbye.